Okay, so I only see Alan, me, and oops, I lost Michelle.
That's okay. I just muted my video.
Oh, okay.
I'm watching for attendees.
Ah, okay.
So we have a quorum now.
Hey, Alan,
Yeah.
sorry about the election results.
Oh, I'm not.
You're not?
I have my Tuesdays back.
Oh, okay.
No, it was an uphill battle, to be sure. And
Well, good for you for trying.
yeah. And John and I are in agreement on most things. So
He was interviewed recently on one of the TV stations,
yeah.
and he said that you guys were really good friends.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice.
Yeah. After the results were known, we went over to Swirl and sat there for about an hour and just talked about strategy, the future.
Good.
So
Good.
it was good.
He also said the election was about as exciting as watching paint dry.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I guess originally it looked like only 29% of the people returned their ballot, which amazes me when it's so easy.
Right.
But see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. We can, let's see. Who else? We'll need Gloria, so we could bring Gloria over. Because the first item isn't variance and it takes 5 yes votes to pass. So if we don't have 5, we can't even bother.
There were no minutes online. Were they sent separate?
Gosh, let's see.
No, they were in the packet, Mike. I have actually even copied them from the online packet today.
They're not there.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't.
You're not seeing them?
No, it goes right to the first item, the subdivision waiver on Spring Street.
That is really weird because like I said, I went onto the city website and used the online packet to copy myself a packet and I clicked right on the minutes. They were right there. So that's weird.
I'll try it right this minute, see if I can find them, but I guess we can postpone it till next month if people haven't had a chance.
Absolutely.
Because I downloaded it just a little while ago again, just so I'd have it on my iPad and I didn't see them.
I wonder if different systems, if it makes a difference.
Yeah, this is, I have it on my laptop, and then also on an iPad. So, well, at least the important stuff made it, so we're good. So let's see, do we have anybody else?
Larry,
Hi.
welcome back.
Now there's a David there. Do you think that's David Armstrong?
David Armstrong's in the panel.
Oh, he's here now. Where? Oh, there he is. Okay. He just showed up. Okay, good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Okay. Well, I think that's what it's going to be. So it's 6:01 and I'll call the meeting to order. This is a November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Manitou Springs Planning Commission. And first item is to call the roll. So I'll do that and just reply by saying here or present or raise your hand. So Gene Vrobel. Mike Casey.
Here.
Gloria Latimer.
Here.
Justin Wilson.
Here.
David Armstrong.
Here.
Okay, so, and I'm Alan Delwich. And we have a quorum, so we'll move on. The first item of business would be approval of the minutes, but since we haven't had a chance to review them, we'll postpone that till next meeting. And so we'll move right on into the business part of our meeting, and I'll just start by describing the process. I'll call an item up for consideration. Planning staff will describe what the request is and what their findings and analysis are and what recommendations they have, if any. And following that, the commission will ask the staff any questions they have and ask for more information if necessary. Following that, we will open the, we will have the applicant step into the panel and they'll state their case. And if we have questions for them, we'll ask them at that time. And following that, we'll open the hearing to the public. And anybody in the audience may just raise your hand with the raise your hand feature on your, hopefully everybody can find that on their various devices. And raise your hand and we'll put you on the panel and you can make your case, express your opinion based on that particular item that under consideration. And after we're done hearing all public input, we will close the hearing to the public and we will deliberate and either vote to approve, deny, possibly table, or possibly modify whatever the request was, add some conditions or whatever is appropriate. And that's our process. And as we go through it, we're not legislating, we're interpreting what's in our zoning code, in our subdivision code. And so that's the basis of our decisions. We're not legislating, we're just judging based on the facts and what our zoning code says in our subdivision code. So with that, are there any conflicts or ex parte contacts that need to be disclosed? Okay, and I'm gonna just, I have to, right now, my internet is unstable, so I'm just gonna switch routers and this should make the difference. So I may I don't hear any concerns, so we'll move on to the first item of business, unfinished business. This is subdivision waiver 2101. Encroachment into no build area, 325 Spring Street. James Murphy of Murphy Building and Remodeling applicant on behalf of John R. Edgar, owner.
So I did have a chance to speak with both Mr. Edgar and Mr. Murphy regarding when to postpone this to, and they did confirm January meeting would provide sufficient time for them to finally finish up. They've been trying to get on a schedule with a surveyor to check the grades in the no build area and make sure that what appears, it appears the currently defined no build isn't correct, and they want to be able to provide information on that. So they have requested actually postponement to the January meeting, or tabling the item to the January meeting, if you could do that.
Okay, is there a motion to postpone?
I can make a motion. Postpone subdivision waiver 2101 to the January meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And all in favor, just raise your hand. Okay, so this, we'll see that in January. Moving on. First item of new business is variance 2113, rear yard setback, 8.52 feet where 15 is required, 225 Mesa Avenue. Maria and Elaine Navarantny, applicants on behalf of John Shannon, owner. And item 2114, lot size density variance, 3890 square feet where 4,400 square feet is required, 225 Mesa Avenue, the same applicant.
Good morning, good evening, commissioners. I will share the screen as I have a presentation to accompany. Let's. Oops. So as Chair Delwich noted, this is a request for two variances for 225 Mesa Ave. One is for variance from rear setback and one is for minimum lot size. So just let's provide a brief overview of the property. This is a 3,890 square foot parcel. It is in about a 100-year-old subdivision up on Mesa Ave and is in the Minnehaha Pilot Knob Historic Subdistrict. There is an area of encroachment on the property that has been created by city road and utilities extending over the property. An easement was not obtained for that. The property sloped steeply downhill and is surrounded by right-of-way and single-family to the north, single-family residential to the east, vacant and single-family to the south and west. No immediate development to the south or west. And so this shows the property in the context of this neighborhood. It was platted pre-zoning, and so you can see it's pretty irregular lot sizes and setbacks. And here is the property here. This is a large vacant open area with a single family home to the north. The applicant has prepared this plan. They put quite a bit of effort into this. They also obtained a geologic hazards tier 3 report in order to address the steep slopes on the property. And so you can see here this checkered area is the area of encroachment into the right of way. And so they are have brought the house to the top of the slope as recommended by their engineering consultant. And so the building encroaches into the rear setback, and the rear is defined as this alignment here. The orange line is the 15-foot required setback line. And so you can see the home encroaches about 6.5 feet. And so 8.5 feet of setback is proposed. The lot is undersized for the 4,400 square foot requirement, 3,840 square feet, with almost 400 of that area taken up by this encroachment. So the city would provide an easement to formally document this encroachment. Staff did note a 10-foot easement at the northwest corner of the property that isn't defined. So we would request that the applicant's engineer state whether that easement is still needed and what it was intended for. Existing development in the area includes a single-family home and garage to the east here. Actually, this property owner currently owns this lot and is intending to sell it. It's a relatively compact footprint, about 700 square footprint, I think, designed to fit nicely into this very steep slope. This map shows the topography in more detail. There is quite a lot of steep topography in the area, as you can see coming up Minnehaha. Looking at the property here, there is a steep drainage at the rear of the property. However, this property, because it is smaller, is completely covered by a steep slope. And then just wanted to share a few images from the neighborhood. This is a view of the property from the street. And these are just some examples of other single development in this GR district neighborhood. And so I won't go over all of the variance criteria, but we did provide a thorough review. Staff addressed both variance requests together with each criterion. So regarding the first criteria for hardship, I think there was a good case made for hardship due to the size of the lot and as well the encroachment from the city roadway on the property. We did explore design alternatives and did not see any other reasonable approaches given that it is a small lot and the home is a smaller home that I think is well suited for this smaller lot. The property regarding variance criteria 4 does not, the request does not result from actions of the applicant, as all of these situations were in place before they started designing their project for the property. They did make a strong argument that reasonable protections are afforded adjacent properties, and staff agrees with that. The rear encroachment, as you can see, is really directed towards the western part of the site. There are no adjacent abutters in that area. The only neighbor is really here to the east, so they won't be affected by that situation. And staff did find that there is sufficient justification to meet the variance criteria, and for criterion 7, that it does observe the spirit of the code, secure the public safety and welfare, and ensure that substantial justice is done. So staff proposed 5 conditions. Sorry, this is a lot of text on screen, but essentially the first condition just formalizes the amount of encroachment and that this that the variance review is based on this specific plan. Staff did note that some additional information should be added to document the front setback, that it should extend from the roadway. We also noted the 10-foot easement in the northwest corner and are requesting that the applicant's engineer provide more information about whether that easement is still required. We require that prior to building permits, the applicant note that the roof overhang on the in the side yards meets code. And then finally, the city will draft and record an easement for the encroachment of Mesa Ave and associated utilities over the property. So that's the information that I have to share. I know that the applicant is joining us, and is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share? Or actually, I should probably let the commission chair make that request.
Yeah, well, let's first we'll have, if any of the commissioners have questions for staff, now would be the time to have that discussion.
I do.
Mike?
Karen, was there any input from the neighborhood on this?
There was not, no. We did mail notification, posted the property and posted the notice in the newspaper, and we did not receive any comments from neighbors. I was up in the neighborhood taking some photos, and I happened to chat with some neighbors, explained the request, and they had no concerns.
Okay. And then just for my own information, I guess, on the lot size, is that just the house, or does that include the driveway? On the density?
The lot size of 3,890 square feet includes the easement area over Mesa Road. Mesa Ave.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry, I was misreading that. Never mind.
Okay, any other questions for staff? David?
Yes, Karen, I'm confused in number one, additional encroachments from a building corner and deck into the rear yard are permitted according to the attached site plan dated October 29th, 2021. I don't understand that. It implies that we're giving them we would be giving them a substantial incursion into the rear yard setback, and then there would be additional setback beyond, or incursion beyond that. And I don't think that's what you mean. So I'm not tracking there. Maybe I'm not reading.
Okay, sure. Let me explain the intent there. So I pulled up the site plan again. So we have this building corner here that's encroaching 6.5 feet. Then we also have this additional building corner and then a small corner from the deck that are also encroaching. We document the highest level of encroachment as the actual request. We want to make sure that the plan that we receive for building is exactly this plan and doesn't have further encroachment within to the 15-foot rear yard. So we're not permitting encroachment of the full building up to 8.52 feet. We're just permitting this corner and then these other two areas as documented in this plan.
Okay, well, that's the way I understood it, and the drawing is quite clear. I'm still not clear about that language, but maybe that's my problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And any other questions for staff? Okay, then at this time, let's bring the applicant into the panel. Okay. Okay, great. Can you start, Maria, by stating your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Maria Navaratna and my address is 217 Duncan Avenue, Manitou Springs.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours now. Can state your thoughts on this staff recommendation and so on.
Okay, thank you. I think basically the size, the minimum lot density size thing, you know, that's comparable with other properties that are in that neighborhood. In my application, I put in on more than 10 properties that are of the same sort of size lot. And then with regards to the encroachment, that our building could have shifted forward more towards the road, but because the city had taken that triangular section at the front of the lot from the lot, it meant that we had to go further down the hillside, and therefore that's why we're encroaching. And then, yeah, our only neighbour is actually John to Shannon, who is actually the owner of the land for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be closing on that land. And then on the other side, that property is that huge piece of property owned by Harold, and his last name escapes me. And I know that Walton, that's it. And I know that will possibly be developed one day, but that west side next to our property is actually a hillside that goes up, and it's the old Midland Railroad. So it's that old trestle that was filled in. So that's actually infill. So I wouldn't anticipate any close neighbours to that corner at all. And our house is modest. It's a 2-bedroom house on the bottom floor. And that deck encroaches just slightly there because we have 2 windows on each of the bedrooms, the egress windows. Is there anything else you want to say? It's not an ambitious project. It's an ICF house, insulated concrete form with a shed roof, very low profile from the road. And that's everything, I think.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any, are you comfortable with staff's recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thanks.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
would anybody on the commission like to ask the applicant any questions? Okay, I think, I don't see any hands raised, so I think you're fine. If we have more questions, we'll bring you back, but for now we can put the applicant back in the attendees. Okay, now that the hearing's open to the public, if anybody'd like to comment on this item, just raise your hand and we'll bring you over. Okay, I see no hands raised, so I'll close the public comment part of the public hearing, and we're at the table. Any thoughts or motions or questions?
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I didn't.
I was hoping you would make a motion.
Okay, well, Mike, I'll make a motion for you, okay?
Okay.
I move we approve variance 2113 and 2114 with staff's recommended conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? And all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so that's unanimous, and that we're done. Doesn't go on to council. This is approved now. And we need to take Maria off the panel, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the next item of business is rezone 2106, a rezoning low-density residential to commercial. This is a preliminary meeting at 324 Becker's Lane, Becker Johnson Inc. applicants on behalf of TAD Enterprises owner.
Thank you. Let me also share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and if you all could confirm that you're seeing that, that would
Yep.
be helpful.
It's
Okay,
there.
great. So as this indicates, this is the initial meeting on a rezoning request, so there is no action taken at the meeting other than to set for public hearing at the end of the meeting, and also let both staff and the applicant know if there are any if there's any information or documentation that the commission wants to see other than what's been recommended by staff. And let's see. Trying to make sure I even know how to get this going. Nope, sorry. There we go. Oh, I figured it out. This is the rezoning request. The property owner is proposing rezoning of a parcel that's contiguous with the Garden of the Gods Trading Post property from low density residential to the commercial designation. That's so he's proposing a development of a storage and office building to serve that existing retail business. I'd already noted what the purpose of the meeting is. And then following rezoning, if approved, the parcel will require replatting into the same lot as the trading post and also a minor development permit application. So this shows the project location and the surrounding zoning. The project is in this green outlined area that's part of this larger parcel that's owned by the applicant. The remainder of that property, there is a house located on it, and the remainder of that property would stay low density residential. And this shows where the existing trading post property and the commercial zoning is. This parcel is approximately 32,000 square feet in size. So as I mentioned, that specific rezoning parcel is vacant except for some informal parking by trading post employees. And there is a home located on the property to the east of the specific parcel on which rezoning is proposed, and that will stay in the zone. Utilities are provided in this area by Colorado Springs Utilities and Manitou Springs Public Works. We don't anticipate any issues with utilities as the area is already served. Of course, all of that would be more detailed should it get to the stage of minor development. Surrounding uses include Garden of the Gods Trading Post and parking for that commercial use directly to the north and west of this parcel, a mixture of single unit and townhome residential development, and Garden of the Gods Park is immediately north and west of the property, and Becker's Lane is an access into that park. Staff shown the future land use map on this slide here. That future land use map in Plan Manitou shows this as a destination tourism area, or the trading post property. So that's that kind of lilac or purple area that's showing there. Staff's provided some information on that destination tourism land use, how that's described. Staff will have a full evaluation of all the rezoning criteria which includes consistency with Plan Manitou for the public hearing. So there, information on the potential uses, should rezoning be approved under the commercial zone is provided in the staff report. Staff notes not every use may be compatible with the area. The proposal is specific to storage and office use, and conditions may potentially be placed on any rezoning approval and on any major development plan that wouldn't allow a change of use without a public review process by the city. So that's, again, something we'll have more information on when we get to public hearing. Staff has received a few public comments. Most of those were provided in the staff report. There was one additional comment at the time that this PowerPoint was being done, and I actually received one more email before the end of today. And so you have information on the ones that were received by November 3rd in the staff report. All comments received prior to the staff report for the public hearing will be provided as part of that report as well. So staff has recommended that the applicant provide, in addition to any other information required by the commission, the 4 items listed here. And then staff recommends the public hearing on the rezoning request be set for the January 12th, 2022 meeting. There have been some discussion with the applicant in light of the information that needs to be provided to go to public hearing. He has agreed that the January meeting would make more sense than a December public hearing. And then staff's noted that information for that hearing would need to be submitted no later than Monday, December 13th, so that we can review, distribute as may be necessary, and then incorporate into the formal recommendation for the public hearing that'll go to the commission. And I am happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions for staff or any thoughts on things you'd like to, information we need before we can have this hearing? David?
Yeah, I would just note that this issue has come up more than once in the zoning code meetings we've had, is the interface, in this case, of a commercial or quasi light industrial use with residential. And I would just think it would be necessary for the applicant to fully address that. So.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, at this time, let's bring the applicant over and let them make their statement.
So I brought Tim Haas over, and Tim, if you could let us know if you want, if Johnny Johnson or anybody else that's in the attendees needs to be brought over, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you. I think if Johnny could join us, that would be great if there's a technical comment he might like to make. And then also April Hall should be a guest. I'm hoping she could join the panel. She has a PowerPoint I'd like to just go through with you all quickly if I could.
Okay, both of them should be coming over.
Okay, and what I'm hoping is April might be able to share her screen. But before I do my portion, I guess I would defer to Johnny if he has some
Okay,
comment.
let's start with, would each of you please state your name and address for the record?
Certainly, Tim Haas, 324 Becker's Lane,
Could you please state your residential address?
3905 Greenside Point, Colorado Springs, 80904.
Johnny, I think you're muted right now.
April, you want to introduce yourself while Johnny's working on getting,
Michelle, I'll run the meeting, please.
that's fine.
April?
I'm April Hall. My address is 1142 Hill Mesa Court, Colorado Springs, 80905.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, there you are.
Can you hear me? My name is Johnny Johnson with Becker Johnson. My office address is 811 East Pine,
Okay,
Colorado Springs,
your
Colorado.
residential address?
My residential address
Yes.
is 116 East Columbia Street, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so April, you're going to share a presentation now?
With your permission, I thought I might let Johnny make a couple comments if he had a few, and then I could go through that if that would be okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Johnny.
The project is a office warehouse facility that is going to take the place of the existing warehouse area, and will take the office residential portion or office warehouse portion and put it in a separate building. There will not be any additional traffic beyond what's there now. The Garden of the Gods trading post was originally constructed in 1925 and has been intended to service the visitors to the Garden of the Gods, and as a Becker's Lane as one of the access points to the Garden of the Gods has been a part of the trading post since its inception. Over the years, the property has evolved, and a master plan was submitted in 1997, which showed additional commercial development south of the existing property or the existing improvements. And the area has been used for employee parking and will be now used as a combination of employee parking and office warehouse. The residential uses to the east are higher and overlook the area. The drainage from this property will be directed back into the tributary behind the existing trading post and down into the Becker's Lane tributary, so there won't be any additional drainage going down Becker's Lane from what has historically gone down there. The traffic that has used Becker's Lane over the years has been partially Garden of the Gods visitors and service providers that provide services for the Garden of the Gods trading post, and for service providers that provide services for the residential area. The majority of the users of the trading post are from the Garden of the Gods, and are not, the Garden of the Gods trading post is not a conventional commercial use, in that it does not attract users. It provides the services for the users of the park. And this expansion would be an additional provision of services for the visitors of the park. If you have any questions, and we'll be glad to provide the requested information that Michelle has indicated will be needed.
Okay. Tim, did you want to speak then?
Yes, I would love to. First of all, thanks for letting us join you in this meeting tonight. Johnny did a nice job of kind of explaining the background and a little bit of the history of the trading post. I have just a small portion of the PowerPoint that we shared with our neighbors when we had a neighborhood meeting back in the middle of October. And I think it's included in Michelle's report, but just to reiterate, we did really try to go above and beyond, in that we were required to notify folks, I think within 500 feet of this potential development. And we certainly did that, but we also chose to notify everybody that lives on Becker's Lane as well, and host a meeting, because we really wanted to try to be as transparent as we could, get information out to folks and let them know what our intentions were. So I'm not going to go through that whole PowerPoint, but I think from reading the editorial in the bulletin, as well as a few of the emails, it seems like there's a couple concerns that I'd like to try to address with you all this evening, just so we can move on from there. So if it's possible for April to share her screen, just going to show you 2 pages of that neighborhood PowerPoint, and then go through very quickly one other presentation, and then I'll be done.
Okay.
So it seemed to me that the 2 primary concerns were the visual impact that this construction might have, as well as concerns of additional traffic or congestion on Becker's Lane. So this first image shows that the exterior of the building will match that of the trading post. It's a single-story building. We intentionally made it that way because we wanted to have as little impact on the neighborhood as possible. And it, I think, will blend in very nicely. At the end of the second presentation, you'll see some actual photographs that'll show how little I believe this will impact things. So just wanted to show you, we're not proposing to build a industrial building. We're building something that would blend in and match that of the trading post. So that's the look. April, if you can move to the next one. The other thing that I hope really addresses the visual impact that we've done intentionally is to try to place this building in a logical place for our business, but also in a place where it would disrupt the neighborhood as little as possible. So you can see these are a couple of Google Earth images where April was able to put where the building would line up. So you can see it's in that area that we're currently using as that informal employee parking lot. It is tucked up against the east hillside as much as possible, or that's the proposal, so that the homes above it would really not be impacted by it at all. So I wanted you to see those parts. Hopefully that addresses some of the concerns regarding the visual impact. And then April, if you wouldn't mind going to the second presentation, I can shoot through that pretty quickly for everyone. I think the other concern, and probably the most significant, is I have read in the newspaper and through the emails, a concern that we were going to somehow exponentially increase the amount of traffic on Becker's Lane. I want to be as clear as possible. That's the last thing that we intend to do. So what I did is took a look at the hard data that was available to me, and then I'll explain the rest of what I did. Many of you may know that there were counters that were placed at the various entrances and exits to the Garden of the Gods Park a number of years ago. One of those is on Becker's Lane, just west of the trading post. And again, at all of the other entrances and exits, including Gateway and Ridge Road, etc. So there were a total of a little over 2.2 million trips in and out of the Garden of the Gods. And let me back up just a second. This data is from January 1st through October 18th of this year. I reached out to the folks at the Friends of the Garden of the Gods, and that was the date range that they provided to me. So it's not an entire year, but we're comparing apples to apples here as we move forward. So of those 2.2 million trips, Becker's Lane is by far the least utilized entrance and exit to the park. 8% of the people entering the park come up Becker's Lane. 5% leaving the park come down Becker's Lane. So just a little perspective on the use of Becker's Lane thus far. April, if you can go to the next one. So this is the information that I compiled. And what I want to say is I was as conservative as I could be as far as the daily trips for the folks and residences that exist on Becker's Lane. My suspicion is that most likely on average, folks may leave more than once from their home for errands, etc. But I really tried to be conservative and just kind of see where the numbers fell. So directly on Becker's Lane, there are a total of 42 homes, townhomes and cabins. That's 168 trips a day. Using the same apples to apples comparison, that comes out to, as you can see, 48,000 trips. And a trip is one way, up Becker's Lane, one direction or the other, not a round trip. There are 34 outlying homes or townhomes. And I just simply went on Google Earth, and I want to make it as clear as I can. Again, I tried to be conservative. I only used homes that their only access is off of Becker's Lane. I think an argument could be made. There's a number of other houses where they could go up Becker's Lane or they might go a different route. I excluded those entirely from the count, just again to be conservative. The Red Wing Motel, I averaged 50% occupancy in just one car. And then the business that's located at 65 Becker's Lane, very unscientifically, I've counted the number of cars that are parked outside of it for some time to get an average of about 6 employees. So what does all this mean? If we go to the next slide, I'll show you in a moment, because I'm going to show you the trading posts now. On average, we have 28 employees, and my assumption is they come to work and they leave. We have a delivery truck that is owned by TAT Enterprises that travels to our other locations and averages about 6 trips per day. An important point that I do want to bring up, so I don't forget it, is that we do have 8 locations, but the Garden of the Gods Trading Post represents over 60% of our company's gross. So what that means is 6 out of $10 that are generated by our business are done so at the trading post with merchandise that is being sold from the trading post. Right now, we have an offsite warehouse where we truck in a vast majority of that merchandise. What this will do is eliminate a fair amount of those deliveries. Going back to the slide, in addition, even with an offsite warehouse, we have UPS, FedEx, Amazon, bringing a number of different items to us virtually on a daily basis. In an effort, again, to be conservative, I didn't include any of that for the residences on Becker's or outlying streets, even though clearly many of those same trucks are traveling to homes. We do have a number of freight trucks that are somewhat unscheduled and probably average about 50 in a year. And finally, we have things like Shamrock and some of our beverage distribution companies that service our cafe at the trading post. Those are coming whether we have an offsite warehouse or not, because it's coming to the trading post. So that totals just over 20,000 trips. If you can go to the next one, what I'm proposing, or what we are proposing, is that we would go to, on average, about 31 employees, which is only an increase of about 3 people. We would decrease the number of trips that our delivery truck would have to make, because again, 60% of our sales are coming from the trading post. That merchandise is already there. We don't have to truck it in. We will still have UPS, FedEx, Amazon, but I think a really important point for everybody to keep in mind, that UPS truck is coming up the street, whether it's delivering 1 box to us or 30. So that won't increase. Again, in an effort to be as transparent and forthcoming as I could, I increased the number of freight trucks, even though I honestly am not convinced that will happen. The Shamrock number stays the same, and we come to a count of 20,736. If you can go to the next one, April, thank you. So that means where we stand right now, based on the assumptions that I made, there's about 270,000 trips per year. 57% of those are people going to and from the Garden of the Gods Park, 18% Becker's Lane residents, 15% outlying. The motel and the business property are real limited. And then the trading post is 7%. So the traffic that's on Becker's Lane, 7% of that should be attributed to the trading post. With what I'm proposing, the numbers essentially stay the same. It's 517 additional trips that are attributable to the trading post. The parks is at 56%, and you can see that the trading post goes to 8%. So the next one, please, April. So the new construction, at least in my opinion, would not statistically affect the overall numbers. I already mentioned the UPS delivery. considerably less than 10% of overall traffic is attributable to the trading post. One point that I didn't make is that the new design, I think, is really favorable in that we are proposing to add an additional gate, which would allow us to take traffic off of Becker's Lane and provide a space for it to navigate back to the new storage area and not impede any sort of traffic flow on Becker's. And then the final comment I have here is that the deliveries that we currently have and that we would have with our new proposed improvement, most of them happen during non-peak traffic hours when residents are most likely away from their homes or at work. So I went over that fairly quickly just for the sake of time for all of you. I'm happy to answer any questions there, but if April could go to the next one, I just have one more picture I'd like to show you. What we did, and it's a little difficult to see, but we have marked out the corners of the proposed building. And again, one of the big concerns was the visual impact. And I understand, I respect people's concerns. What I wanted to do was to try to illustrate as clearly as I could that with the existing adobe wall that we have around this area, if you can look, I guess, the picture on the left first, that's the gate that is closed by park staff at night. Above the wall, you'll see two orange duct tape posts. Those represent the proposed top of the structure. So it would be visible from Becker's Lane, but one of the phrases I heard was urban blight, and I don't believe that's what we're proposing to create. The second picture on the right is just down the street a little bit, and again shows the right corner of the building, and actually the post on the left is the middle of the building. So that's really what I had to try to share with you all to hopefully address some of the concerns. If there are any questions, I or Johnny hopefully will do our best to answer those. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, before, if there are any questions, now's the time. But before we do that, I just want to remind everybody, this hearing is intended to identify what information we need for the public hearing, which will be scheduled for January. It's not really to litigate or debate the pros and cons of this development. It's more to ask for that information that we need. So based on that, does anybody have questions for the applicants? Gloria? I think you're muted.
Hello, Tim. This is Gloria Latimer. I have two suggestions if this moves to a public hearing. One would be to describe the size of the trucks you will be using and to explain to the public, if this is your major storage area, how that will not increase traffic, if that's going to be storage area for all of your businesses, or I understand it's primarily for the trading post. And then one other thing, which is just a personal interest to me, is what happens to the cog railroad cars.
Okay, great. Mike, did you have some?
Yes. Tim, on the public meeting that you had, can you just talk about that briefly? How was the attendance and how was the overall vibe of that meeting?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. First, to answer Gloria's question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think this will go on for a long time if we do a lot of back and forth. It's more to identify those things that we want to bring up in the public hearing, because that's when that's when it's really germane to have all the answers. Right now, we're providing the questions. So that, to the most part, we should try to just identify what we want to know. So, but Mike, I mean, that's a legitimate question. I think one, that has been asked also. There is a part of the application is to provide a written report of the neighborhood meeting. And I assume that will be part of what's presented in January. Are there any other questions? Okay. Tim, you're muted. Oh,
I do have one question. And that is, Larry and I had an opportunity to speak briefly yesterday. And forgive me, Alan, if you're going to bring this up in a moment, but I think the potential need for a delay in our next meeting was potentially a traffic study. And I guess the question I have is, this is going to be characterized as a minor development. And do minor developments typically require a formal traffic study? And to add to that, I'm not particularly concerned about the study other than the cost, but primarily the time. And we are in a fortunate situation that our business has continued to grow coming out of the pandemic. And we have a real time crunch in that our existing warehouse space is not adequate for our business. So I realize we certainly want to provide any information that is required. With all respect, I'm not sure I totally volunteered that we wanted to delay this a month unless that's absolutely necessary. So I'll just bring that forward.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. There are no more things that we need from the applicant. I think we can move on to allow the public to ask their questions. So could we can, applicants, you can stand by, but we can take them out of the panel for now. And if we need more information, we can bring them back. Okay, we're now, I see we have two hands raised from the public, and we'll bring them over one at a time. But before we do this, I just want to remind everybody again, especially those who want to speak, that this is a preliminary hearing, and this is more of a fact-finding stage of the process where we've heard the preliminary, we've heard the plan and what's being proposed, and now we're trying to get the info, trying to make sure we answer all the questions that are of interest to everybody, so that we can have a public hearing that provides all the answers. We don't want to go to the public hearing next month or in 2 months and find that people have all kinds of questions that haven't been answered and then have to delay again. So right now, the main thing is to identify the information, the questions you want answered, to help deliberate on this. And of course, you're welcome to speak to anything you want regarding the project, but it's important to remember that tonight we're not going to be acting on this request. We're only seeking information. So if you do have opinions, either pro or con on the project, the public hearing that will be in the future, either December or January, that is the time to be present and make your case, in support or not in support, whatever. So with that, let's bring over, I guess Joan Stang is at the top of the list, and she's got her hand raised. Okay. Okay, could you start by stating your name and address for the record, please?
You bet. Joan Stang. I live on Crystal Park Road. It's 204 Crystal Park Road in Manitou Springs, 80829. I just wanted to be part of this call tonight to basically state how concerned I am as a resident of Manitou. I'm basically commenting that I'm opposed to this zoning change. I truly am, and just wanted to make a comment about that. I actually wrote a letter to the council, our mayor and our council members. Michelle Anthony, you were also copied on that, and it basically outlined my concerns about this zoning change that's being proposed. I actually walk Becker's Lane quite often from my home. I pick up trash in the area. I also have friends in the area. So I visit them and I stand outside along Becker's Road and we talk, and man, I am watching lots of cars zooming up and down Becker's, people walking dogs, trolleys going by. I am highly concerned about the additional traffic congestion and safety concerns that the impact of this warehouse and this rezoning change would do for this neighborhood. I adamantly oppose it, and I'm here tonight to just say, please don't let this pass. I'm against it. That's really all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If anybody else in the audience would like to speak, this is the time to raise your hand. And okay, I see one more hand, Randy Thorne. Can we bring him over?
Do you have me, Alan?
Yes, you're welcome to, are you on a phone or do you have video? You're welcome to turn on your video if you have it.
Let me start the video here. There we go. Thank you, folks, for letting me speak tonight. I live at Randy Thorne, and my wife and I, Mary, live at 15 Via Loma, which is right up behind the trading post up on the hill. I've written a couple of letters to you folks. I'm sure you've got those. And my major concern here is that we seriously look at this thing from a use standpoint. Anytime you do a zone change from a low density residential commercial, it's a significant change. And the impacts to those residential folks, our neighbors, is significant. The amount of uses that are allowed in a commercial zone, in your own zoning code, there's 22 allowed. And there's also anything in the downtown area that's allowed can be built here or can be positioned here. Our applicant, Tim, has graciously provided us with a neighborhood meeting and gave us some information about the intent and what his use for this is going to be. And I get what he's doing. The trading post is a very valuable asset to the city of Manitou Springs. And we need to be supportive, but we also have to be, I think, very careful and selected to protect the neighbors in this zone. Please review your permitted uses in commercial zones. Down the road, Tim could sell this thing. And at that point, we could have ambulance services, bars, breweries, convenience stores, gas stations, motels, service stations. All of those have their own impacts. And once they're approved as an approved use to this zone change, I got a response from Michelle that, well, don't worry about it. You know, it'll have to go through another approved development if the change of use does not conform to the existing, development issues that you've got there. Well, I've found in my years, 40 years as an architect, and spent many times in zoning meetings, many times on the client side of these things, that once that use is approved for that piece of property, it is really difficult to tell somebody they can't put a bar on this property down the road. And so please, 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 conditions of record are there for you guys to use. And it seems to me that Tim's only request here is for office warehouse. And to me, that should be the only thing that's approved. So conditions would say that that's it. And they would have to go through a complete variance and zone change later on if it's sold and somebody wanted to put a bar or a sexually oriented business in here. So again, protecting our neighbors, folks, is something we've got to start doing. And Becker's Lane has already had some problems recently with some development in there. So we've got to protect these folks. So thank you. That's all I got to say for now. And I will be present at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next up, we have Sarah Blakesley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a one question for.
Could you start by stating your name and address for the record, please?
Of course. Sarah Blakesley, 2353 Gilpin Avenue, Colorado Springs. And my question is just for a detail to be clarified for the January meeting. On the PowerPoint presentation, we saw that a large portion of the current employee parking area is going to be used for this development. And I assume there will be like loading and unloading areas. So the question is for the developers, where do the existing employees park in the future with this development? That's it.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands up. I'll give it a second here. I think we've had our public input. So with that, no, I almost saw one there, but okay. So I believe we can close the public comment portion of this hearing now. And then as we can, if there's any more things that people are interested, any more information they're interested in having, now would be the time to bring it up. Now, I have a couple things I'd like to see added for the formal public hearing. And one is, well, there are a couple things. One, I found it like, these drawings are really hard to read. And I would appreciate it if for the hearing in January, if we could have them be more more readable, you know, they're sort of out of context is the other thing. I kind of like, maybe we could see I know it's not the minor development stage, but just to have a better picture of the whole site rather than just, you know, we see a little snippet of where the warehouse might be, but it's real hard. I'm a visual person and I'd like to see the whole site plan to see the existing existing buildings and how it relates. So that's one thing that I think could be very helpful and have maybe, I don't want to waste a lot of paper, but have it be something that's more visible, more readable. Another thing I would like to see a copy of the final plat that was done when we had a major development back in 1999. And I think the final plat was approved in June of 1999. And I don't think there's been any additional plat work done since then. So I would like to see a copy of that and in a form so that it's actually readable. If it's, I don't know how we can do that because they're pretty big 24 by 36 plats usually. And I know that's probably not within the capabilities of our copy machines, but if we could at least get a pretty good picture of that, I'd like to see that. I remember seeing it back in 1999, but I'd really like to be able to look at that just to get everything in context, understand what we said back then. There's some plat notes on that plat, and I'd like to be able to review those. And one of the things that we did back then, there was a realignment of Becker's Lane, and part of what had to be dealt with was where the water main was. There's an easement on either side of Becker's Lane, and I think that's relevant to this. There was supposed to be a document describing the responsibility for maintaining that easement, and just be curious just to know if that document still lives around, because that was part of the hearing back then, and it'd be a good stress test of our system to see if we still have that and understand if that's going to be any impact on this. And I guess the final thing that I'm wondering about is if there is any documentation on how we got to where we are with, right now there's informal employee parking on a residential lot. And I don't remember that ever being approved it would have to be a conditional use to have commercial parking in a residential area. And that just sort of popped up at some point in the last decade. I haven't really been paying attention. Time flies by, but I do remember back sometime in the early 2000s when one of the expansions, there was an agreement to put a barrier between the residential and the commercial zone and have a barrier of evergreen trees. And some of those were put up, but then over the years they died, and then all of a sudden this expanded parking was. And I'm just curious if there was ever any formal approval or how that got approved, how that happened to be, because I know I just don't remember having a conditional use hearing where that was approved. So that's what I'd like to see as part of the hearing in January. Any other additions, Mike?
Earlier, one of the gentlemen mentioned the Garden of the Gods master plan from 1987. It might be nice to get a summary of that. I'm not familiar with that. I remember when it was written, but
yeah,
maybe a highlight of development in how that relates to the master plan.
Yeah, I think it was 1997, he said, actually. But I think that would be, if we have access to that, that would be really informative. I think it was finally approved in May and June of 1999. But yeah, that could be very interesting to see that.
And then also just a question on the process. What we're talking about is the rezone. Now, it's nice to know what the plan is for the minor development, but isn't that two different conversations?
Yeah, I absolutely, I think it is, but I think it informs the process to understand, it's like, we had a situation recently where we had a rezoning, and then we had a major development and all those different pieces, and they were all, they were interdependent. And unfortunately, the way it ended up happening, the applicants put a lot of work into producing all those plans, and then the rezoning failed. So that's, I think, why we do the rezoning first. But at the same time, I think it's pretty useful to at least get an understanding, what the purpose is of the rezoning. So yeah, I agree. It's a cart before the horse, but I guess we could just go blind and say they just want to rezone and they're going to do something. But I think it's, probably, I can't speak for the applicant, but I think that, they may, it may be to their advantage to say what they're going to do, because otherwise.
No, I completely understand, and it's good information to have, of course. But to Mr. Thorne's point, if it's rezoned, are the applicants bound to do what they're promising to do?
Yeah.
Will there be another step in the process if it's rezoned to approve what's being built?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's important for the world to know.
Okay. Is there anything else that we'd like to have? Any other information? I think, it sounds to me like one of the things there will be this completed application that includes the public facilities and services report and all the elements of that. And the other questions that were asked tonight. So with that, I guess we're ready to schedule, I think the next step is to make a motion to schedule the public hearing. And before we do that, I'd like to throw it open to staff, either Larry or Michelle. It sounds like to me like the plan still, the recommended time would be the January meeting to do this. Oh, David, I see your hand. You had your hand up, or was? No, okay, sorry.
Larry actually had the discussion with Mr. Haas, so he may want to weigh in, but I think we both felt like he would probably need the time to produce the information.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, that's fine then. David, unmute. Yep.
Michelle and Larry, that seemed to hinge from Mr. Haas' point of view on whether or not a traffic study is required. Is that clear?
I think it's pretty much spelled out in the procedures in the rezoning procedures 1805-100. It talks about it enumerates all that stuff in the public services and facilities report. And I think it's important, for the transparency and, people want to follow the process. So I think it's important that we do that. It's called out in the procedures and, it sounds like he's done a lot of work towards it now. And so I think it's important that we just follow the process.
Well, certainly if it's required, there will be plenty of objections about traffic. And with respect to Mr. Haas, his analysis was based on a lot of, I think, assumptions, I estimate, and so forth. So the formal traffic study should answer those.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think, with all that, with the stuff that the applicant needs to produce, I think it'd be better served for everybody if we did schedule this for January. So would anybody like to make a motion to do that? David?
I move we schedule this matter for January, the regular planning commission meeting in January.
Okay, is there a second? Oh, Gloria? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? And let's, all in favor, vote. Okay, that's unanimous. Great. Okay, so move on. The next item of business is review of the Planning Commission updated standard operating procedures. So Michelle, are you going to lead that? Oh, mute. You're muted.
Didn't hit it hard enough. You have some revised standard operating procedures that hopefully captured the discussion from the last meeting. You can see the markup. And so at this point, staff's just looking for any additional edits or changes, questions, and once we're at a point where they seem that they're ready for legal review, then we'll take them for legal review before bringing them back for final review and approval. So if at the end of this, if the commission feels that they're legal review, that they're good for legal review, then we could go ahead and forward them and go through that process. So
okay. Anyone want to start on this?
When I was reading it, I couldn't remember anything that was not covered with Michelle's changes.
Okay. So you're good with it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? David?
Well, maybe this is my lack of reading ability again, but I thought I read somewhere that a conversation with anyone about an item prior to the meeting would be considered a public meeting. But it also says if you can consult with staff in section 8B, I believe. And it seemed to me that there was a conflict there, Michelle.
Are you talking about the section regarding
Communications?
Communications? Let's see.
Section 6.
Section 6.
You have a page?
Oh, boy.
Oh, here, I found it. It's page 10. Article 6, page 10. So there's information communications between commission members. Talks about, not communicating about the items that are coming before the commission.
Right.
Communication between members and staff. So staff isn't a decision maker, so you can talk to staff and ask questions. And then there's the section about communication with city council. So I'm not quite sure.
Let's see. The phrase was conversation with someone about an item prior to the meeting at which it is being considered.
So communications was that, there's also the conflict event, the ex parte contact section.
No, there wasn't the ex parte part.
Okay. So communications regarding quasi judicial items that may be coming to or are scheduled for a public hearing before the commission should be routed through the planning staff. Individual members should not send emails or other forms of communication to the board as a whole. Is that what you're
Right.
talking about?
No, I get that part. I'm thinking 8B. Oh, okay, here it is. What page is that? Maybe it's page 12. There's expressing an opinion before the hearing is held or completed.
The prejudging.
Yeah, or B, having a conversation with someone about the matter prior to the hearing, even if the commissioner does not express an opinion. Well, it's specifically, the standard operating procedures specifically say that we can talk to staff. So there seemed to me to be a conflict there. Maybe it's the language, having a conversation with someone. Maybe someone needs to be, and maybe this is way too nitpicking and we just leave this with Jeff, but.
No, I think that you could have a point. I don't think that the someone was really intended to include like a staff member. I think that was more referring to maybe a neighbor or member of the public, that type of thing. So I can clarify that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, I've got a couple comments. One, I'm not sure where it is. There's a discussion about remote meetings. And I think that's sort of towards the end. I'm sort of scrolling through this. I believe it talks about, okay, yeah, this is on page 9. The last item C, it says, commission members and staff are required to be on video unless technical issues do not allow. Applicants and anyone making public comments are encouraged to appear on video, but not required. I would like to suggest that we should require applicants to be on video. I don't think that's a heavy lift. If we're going to have remote meetings, hopefully they have the technology, or we can provide, somehow they need to be on video. So I would like to suggest that we say applicants are required to be on video unless technical issues do not allow. And anyone making public comments are encouraged to appear on video, but not required. So I would suggest that that's one suggestion I have. And the other, this goes back to the public meetings. Let's see, where is that? My favorite section. This is on page 4. Item A, I just think is flat wrong. It says all meetings of 2 or more members of the commission and any special committee meetings at which public business is discussed are public meetings and require public notice. And this is inconsistent with how this city runs and how it always has run. I'm on a task force right now that doesn't have noticed public meetings. There are 2 city councilors on it. They're in the same category as we are. In the past, I've been on task forces that have had 2 commissioners, and we've always been really careful to limit it to 2, because 3 would be a public meeting of the commission. And you know, I've thought a lot about this. I've talked to people, and I've even, you know, found that, you know, Colorado Revised Statute 246401, this is from 2012. And it basically has a few things, you know, what in the definitions section, it says local public body means any board, committee, commission, or authority, or any other advisory, policy making, rulemaking, or formally constituted body of any political subdivision of the state, blah, blah, blah. So basically it includes municipalities. And then in another section, it states all meetings of 2 or more members of any state public body at which public business is discussed, or at which any formal action may be taken or declared to be a public meeting to the public at all times. B, all meetings of a quorum of 3 or more members of any local public body, whichever is fewer, at which any public business is discussed or at which any formal action may be taken, are declared to be public meetings open to the public. So basically, I think that having, you know, that's just wrong. And I'll certainly defer to Jeff, but I'm really fairly certain that the city would be in massive violations for the last 3 years if this were actually how we operate.
We'll have to have him look at this because these are new for you all because you haven't had SOPs before, but this is the exact language that he approved for other boards and commissions.
Okay,
So
then.
this is what's been in place for others with the 2 or more. That's not changed. So I need to bring that up to him and you know, broach the same information that you're bringing up and ask him to explain it.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, I'm not trying to be contrary or anything, but I was just thinking about it. I was going to ask Jeff myself and just thought, I don't want to burn his billable hours since he's going to review all this, but I just like to really highlight that we need to get that clarified, because otherwise, you know, right now a couple of counselors are in violation, and I know I've been on other task forces with commissioners. So
Okay.
That's my thoughts. Anything else anybody has? Okay, well, I guess we can kick it over to Jeff then. I guess there are a few TBDs in there. Well, you'll be filling those out.
Those are things that I think I need his wordsmithing or confirmation or you know, that type of thing. So hopefully we'll be able to have it for legal review. They can you know, basically polish it up, correct everything, make sure everything that's in there should be, and then I'll be able to bring a final draft back to you all for approval and recommendation to council.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is update regarding the zoning and subdivision codes rewrite.
I don't have a lot on that. Some of you are involved in the technical review committee. They've kind of reconstituted the citizens advisory committee into a technical review committee and added, I think it's up to 17 people now. And they're kind of a little bit starting from scratch. The city's executed a new contract with Logan Simpson. They've extended the contract per approval with DOLA because of our grant funds. And we're kind of regrouping a little bit with the changeover in staff. So they did have the first meeting of the new technical advisory committee this last gosh, I think it was Monday, and basically just talked about, I don't know that there was anything of real code substance. I think they were just getting everybody oriented and what was going to how things were going to move forward. And we'll be meeting some months it'll be a weekly basis, other months it'll be every other week to, really go over code revisions and hopefully be able to come up with the drafts that then can go to council, and council maybe won't have to spend, hours and hours delving into it. Although that's their right if they want to do that as well. So we'll see how it goes. And that's what's going on regarding that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was in that meeting, and it's, I think right now we're doing about a meeting every 2 weeks, and we're starting with looking at the code assessment report that the consultants did a few months ago, and we're going to go from there and then go through it fairly deliberately every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
David.
And Mike, you're on that committee too, and Gloria, you are now not?
I'm not.
David, pending Mike's resignation, Denise sent me an email yesterday, I believe, and asked if I would serve, and I agreed to do so.
Great. I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
And just to let you all know that next meeting, it was potentially going to be on this meeting, but the committee couldn't pull it together in time. Next meeting, the Sustainability Committee is going to do a presentation to Planning Commission about some code updates that they want to propose for sustainability to be included in the code revisions. And I'll be talking next week with the Housing Advisory Board. They are potentially going to want to do the same thing about codes that either aren't proposed or are proposed, but we don't know whether they're going to pass or not, or whatever, about coming to Planning Commission and doing the same thing for code provisions that support housing. So you'll probably see those in the next couple of months.
Okay. Any more questions on the code revision? And, last item is notice of council action and updates.
So this was such a simple rezoning that council did pass the park rezoning up on Topeka at first reading. Second reading is next Tuesday, and we don't anticipate any issues. I think it took about 2 or 3 minutes for the first hearing, and I don't anticipate any more than that for the second. So that should be done and filed by the time your next meeting.
Okay, great. Anything else anybody have? Mike.
Michelle, is there any activity going on with short-term rentals?
I brought up that the moratorium that was set by council at the beginning of this year expires in December. And since those code revisions haven't been established, and there really hasn't been the process that I think probably is going to have to happen for revisions to the short-term rental code, I brought it up so that I felt like council would probably want to pass an extension before we ended up slamming up against a expiration. And I think that is going to be the case. I know the city administrator mentioned that it would be something that council would be looking at in one of the next few meetings, and they may ask them to extend it to October just to make sure that we're through figuring out what revisions to the code and getting those passed. So that would be October 2022, but I don't know. I've not seen the actual agenda item or the ordinance. And so it could be June 2022, or it could be October, but I feel certain there'll be an extension. And that's what we've been telling people.
Yeah, I just happened to bump into the mayor on Lover's Lane yesterday, and we talked for a little while, and actually I believe this coming council meeting, they'll be discussing the notion of having some kind of a building moratorium. And then we also talked, and I reminded the mayor that the moratorium on short-term rentals also is about to expire, and he acknowledged that they'll be looking at that. So that's definitely on the table for the next couple of meetings.
And then is the next meeting in person?
Yes, our next meeting will be in person. So if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.
everyone.